So let's begin in Judges chapter 1, and we're going to greet an old brother, a faithful brother, a warrior, who we followed for 40 years through the wilderness, the man we know to be Caleb. In fact, he tells us how old he is. He tells us in Joshua chapter 14 and verse 10, he's at the tender age of 85. And what we're going to see is that a parable is going to play out in this man's life, a little allegory that we're going to see in this first chapter. What we're going to see is that Caleb, this old brother in the faith, is going to stand as the figure of God. And that's how he's going to be presented to us in the story of Judges chapter 1. He's an old man, is Caleb. I pause at that moment. In fact, God tells us how old he is. He tells us actually in Daniel chapter 7 and verse 9, a description of God is that the Ancient of Days does sit, says God about himself. And in the literal Hebrew, it basically means the advanced in time doth sit. God describes himself, brothers and sisters, as a very ancient man. It tells us in Psalm 93 in verse 2, thy throne is established of old. Psalm 55, verse 19, he that abideth of old is God. And yet the ironic thing is that despite Caleb's advancement in years, well, he was just but a youth. In fact, he tells us in Joshua chapter 14 and verse 11, he says, I am strong this day as I was in the day of Moses who sent me. My strength was then, even so my strength for war is now. So brothers and sisters, if you're approaching 85 years of age, you're but a youth in the eyes of Caleb, unchanging in strength, unwavering in might, old in wisdom, yet youthful in zeal. And isn't that the description of the Almighty God in heaven? The Ancient of Days doth sit, yet it says in Isaiah 40 and verse 28, God faints not, neither is he weary. The psalmist describes for us that the Yahweh, the God of Israel, neither slumbers nor sleeps. So yet God is an ancient man sitting upon his throne, but of youthful zeal and vigor. And what we're going to see here is in this first chapter, in the Ancient of his days, yet youthful in zeal, Caleb now is going to remember a very specific event. He's called into remembrance here as he approaches one of the most iconic Abrahamic cities in all of Israel. He's going to remember the event of Numbers chapter 13. We know what event that was. It was when the spies were sent out into the land, and two men, one of which was Caleb, came back with a faithful report. And there they saw the giants of Anak in Numbers chapter 13, in the place we know today as Hebron. And when Caleb approaches the host of Israel, there are the Canaanites in Hebron, and lo and behold, he's called to remember those three men, and they're there still 40 years later in verse 10. A man called Sheshai, the giant. His name means noble or wise, because this man had a problem with the lust of his eyes. The second one, Ahiman, my brother is a gift, because this man had a problem with the pride of life. And Talmai, whose name means wrinkled or furrowed, well, because this man had a problem with the lust of the flesh. And so those three giants sat there in Hebron represent the three greatest issues in our lives: the lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. And now Caleb, this warrior Israelite, old in his years, yet youthful in zeal, looks upon those men with unfinished business. And he goes in, brothers and sisters, as a man who remembers. And yet in Isaiah 46, Yahweh says in verse 9 to 10, I remember the former things of old, for I am God. I declare the end from the beginning. From ancient times, the things that are not yet done, I will accomplish. And so Yahweh too, the God of Israel, remembers. And he has declared that he will finish the task. Isaiah 55 verse 1, my word shall be done. It shall be finished, says Isaiah. And God purposed in his heart, right from the foundation of the earth, right from the origins of humanity, he purposed in his heart, as he declared, to remove the three giants of sin, the three greatest issues in our lives. It shall be done. And in like manner, the old man Caleb, yet youthful in zeal, declared that he would triumph over the three giants of sin. We see a man here with raw spiritual ambition. And from the basis of this, from those three giants, from those three enemies, only once they are obliterated can fellowship triumph. Because you'll notice in verse 10 and in verse 20, Caleb, the old man, yes, youthful in zeal, in the ancient of his days, as the great warrior upon the mountains of Israel, runs in and he expels the giants of sin and possessed Hebron. It's rather ironic, isn't it, the name Hebron? You know what it means? It's the word that means fellowship. And so once the three giants of sin are removed, only then can the God of Israel, as he remembers, declare fellowship once again. Hebron, of course, is the very place where the patriarchs and the matriarchs sleep in their slumber. It's the place where Abraham received the promises. This is the place of the Abrahamic covenant. And there the three giants are. And Caleb expels them out, forming the place of fellowship. And now, as we approach the New Testament, the story unfolds, doesn't it? Because we only have to go to Hebrews chapter 10. Look at verse 19 to 22, where the writer there, through inspiration, says that once fellowship is secured, we enter into the Holy of Holies, having a high priest. And here, in verse 11 to 12, once the three giants of sin are removed, once the place of fellowship is restored, he comes to Kirjath Sepher. You notice that in verse 11 to 12, 8 miles southwest of Hebron. And in his conquest, you'll notice that he renamed that city, not Kirjath Sepher, he called it Debir. And it's remarkable, because we've just looked at Hebrews chapter 10, that once fellowship is restored, once the three opponents are removed, we can then enter into the Holy of Holies through the new high priest. And you'll never have a guess what the word Debir means. It's the word sanctuary. In fact, it's the very same word oracle, and it's translated 16 times as the Holy of Holies. Fellowship is restored, that Israel can now enter into the Holy of Holies after the new high priest, after the order of Melchizedek, once the promises have been reclaimed. This is the story of Jesus, brothers and sisters. This is the story of Yeshua. In this ancient episode of Judges chapter 1, interestingly, the city Debir, if we were to follow the golden thread through, we'd eventually come to Joshua 21 and verse 25. But there's no need to turn there, because in the story of Joshua chapter 21, this city, known as the Oracle, the Holy of Holies, was allotted to the family of the high priest. It became the priestly city of teaching. And the reason why I'm suggesting it became the priestly city of teaching is because, well, if we know a little bit of Hebrew, the word Debir, D-E-B-I-R, is awfully similar to the word Debar, D-A-B-A-R. And Debar means word. Debir is the city of the word, the sanctuary, the Holy of Holies. And that makes sense, doesn't it? Because, well, we only have to go to Exodus chapter 25, and the high priest would meet Yahweh in the Holy of Holies, in which God said, I will speak to you in the oracle, in Debir, in the sanctuary. And so in this story, this literal event, we are being given a prophetic parable, a parable of the one who was to come. But that is what it became. Debir, the sanctuary, the oracle, the city of teaching, the priestly place. That's not what it is now. Because you'll notice that it's currently called Kirjath Sepher in verse 11. And Kirjath Sepher means the city of the book. Now, it was to become the city of the sanctuary. But at the moment, it's not the sanctuary. That's in the future. He conquers the city of the book, Kirjath Sepher. So if I was to ask the question, where in the world would you identify the city of the book? Where would you go? It's Jerusalem. And what we're beginning to realize in Judges chapter 1 is we're about to witness Jerusalem in two phases. Jerusalem today is the city of the book. And it has been for centuries, for millennia, it's been the city of the book. But it will become the sanctuary, Debir, the oracle. That is the hope of Israel, isn't it? That is the hope of Abraham, Isaac and Jacob. And this was the hope of Caleb in Judges chapter 1. Jerusalem in two phases. The sanctuary that would become the place and the location of the king priest. Don't you think it's wonderful that, the city of Debir and the city of Kirjath Sepher, as it once was called in Joshua chapter 15, was the city allotted to Judah, and yet was occupied by the priests. And so who became Judeans? Who were the Judah? Well, they were the kings. And who were the priests? Well, they were the priests. So here we have the city of king priests. Debir, what it will become. And it's in, brothers and sisters, it's in the city of the book where the old man Caleb, the ancient of his days, advanced in years, yet youthful in vigor, proposes a wager. As he stands before the host of Israel, and in verse 12, he offers the proclamation. He says, He that smiteth Kirjath Sepher and taketh it, to him, he says, will I give Achsah, my daughter, to wife. And so what we're beginning to see now, with the old faithful brother Caleb, in the ancient of his days, yet youthful in energy, we see him seen as a father. And the father goes to the city of the book and offers his daughter. And what we begin to see is that the city of the book concerns his daughter known as Achsah. And the name Achsah is the word that means fetter or anklet. And if you were to look at that word, you'd go to Proverbs chapter 7 and verse 22. It's only used a few times. And the name Achsah is the word associated with a servant or a slave in servitude. And so we have the old man's daughter offered in the city of the book, who was a servant in bondage. Now, we often talk about the Son of God. We often talk about the Son of the Father, don't we? But we don't often talk about his daughter. You know that the Father in heaven has a daughter, a symbolic one. She's mentioned time and time again. She's mentioned all the way through Jeremiah, all the way through Isaiah, all the way through Lamentations. Do you know her name? She's called the daughter of Zion. And Zion is God's people. And if she's the daughter, then she's the remnant. And so the old man Caleb is offering the daughter as the bride, who speaks profoundly of God's people for the city of the book. He who smiteth Kirjath Sepher. And I find it absolutely remarkable that Achsah's blood is both Jewish and Gentile. She's a Jewess and she's a Gentile, and she's offered out as the daughter. And I think that makes sense because, well, Romans 6 verse 16 tells us that God's people, the remnant, are enslaved by the powers of this world. And there she was, Achsah, the servant, in solitude. And now in Caleb's old age, yet youthful in vigor and in zeal, she's waited a long time, hasn't she? Do you agree with that, brothers and sisters? The daughter of the old man, she's waited a very long time for the right man, an awful long time for the right Redeemer. And at this precise moment, concerning the city of the book, Caleb the father says, now, I offer my daughter. Pledge her to marriage. Now, just to thicken the plot a little bit more, the law of Moses offers a bountiful amount of marriage laws, doesn't it? And there's two in particular that I'd like us to address. One of which is in Exodus chapter 22. Exodus chapter 22. And it's only just one verse, and I will paraphrase it. It's in verse 16 to 17. So we're in the context of a marriage. And it says there in verse 16 to 17 that the bridegroom could release a daughter through marriage. So if you're a groom, you could release the daughter, the woman, out of servitude and bondage. But you had to do something through a price. You'll notice that it says he has to pay a bride price as compensation for the father. It's the bridegroom's worst nightmare, isn't it? Let's be honest, to pay money to the father-in-law. That's exactly what's happening. He would have to pay a price to claim the father's daughter. It's known as a mohar. And, well, verse 12 of Judges chapter 1 tells us what the price is going to be. The suitor, the bridegroom, is going to pledge the city of the book as the mohar. That makes sense because Caleb, old in age yet youthful in zeal, says, he who smiteth this city, Kirjath Sepher, can claim my daughter. So the city is going to be the mohar, the compensation. So that's one law. I'd like us to address another one. It's not Mosaic, it's Abrahamic. It's in Genesis chapter 24, verses 59 to 61. But there's no need to turn there, because there's a lot of information going on at the moment. Genesis 24 tells us that the father then could return some of this inheritance to his daughter. So the mohar that was paid to the father then, if he felt good about it, could then pass on some of that mohar onto the daughter. And that was known as a dowry, right? Just to make things even more confusing. So the bridegroom would offer a mohar, and then the father would offer that as a dowry to the daughter. And that would then be brought into the marriage. Now, the dowry of this relationship is going to be the city of the book. So this man is going to win the city of the book, and he's going to pass it on to the father. And the father then is going to pass the city of the book, to them both. That is going to be the inheritance of their marriage. Jerusalem will be the inheritance. Now Caleb, ancient in days yet youthful in vigor, presents his daughter to the suitor. And he calls out to all of Israel, "That's my wager." Not that he spoke in a London accent, of course. But he says that. That's my wager. It's quite the task, isn't it? Seizing the city of the book to inherit a dowry and a Mohar. And as he looks out at all of the multitude and he inspects them all, I imagine there was a bit of silence. One voice called out, "I'll do it." And well, when he listens to the voice, it's a familiar voice. So familiar in verse 13 that the voice came from the son of Kenaz, who just so happens to be the younger brother of Caleb. And if the voice belonged to the brother of Caleb, well, this particular voice just so happens to belong to a man who was to be his nephew. This is the voice of his nephew. And the voice of his nephew is the man called Othniel. And if it's his nephew, then Othniel is from the same tribe as Caleb, which just so happens to be the tribe of Judah. And you'll never have a guess what Othniel's name means. The Lion of God. So here is the Lion of God in the city of the book of the tribe of Judah, betrothing himself to the daughter of the father in the ancient of his days, yet youthful in vigor, as they propose themselves bound in marriage. And it all concerns the great city of the book. A bride is going to be claimed, and the Lion is going to claim her. You know, if we were to go to Revelation chapter 5, and well, we won't turn there, but in Revelation chapter 5, we see there the judgments that are going to be poured upon pagan Rome. And at that moment, Jerusalem has been captured. It's been seized. The city of the book has been claimed. And the angel proclaims in Revelation chapter 5, who is worthy to open the book? No man could open the book because no man was worthy to open the book. And then the angel says, "Weep not. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah hath prevailed to open the book." And there was the Lion as Jerusalem was captured by the Romans. And we steam forward now, centuries into the future. And then in Revelation chapter 19, the city of the book is about to be reclaimed by the Lion of God. And what do the hosts cry out in Revelation chapter 19? They all cry, "Let us be glad, for the marriage has come. For the wife hath made herself ready." Jerusalem will be claimed again when the bride has married her husband. After centuries of pagan and Gentile capture, she shall be won by the Lion of God of the tribe of Judah. You know, Othniel, well, he just so happens to be our very first judge, doesn't he? And what does it say about him in, well, Judges chapter 3? If you flick over just one page to Judges chapter 3. You'll notice in verse 9, it says, Yahweh raised a deliverer. A deliverer. The word deliverer, incidentally, is the word Yasha. Yahweh raised a Yasha. Yasha. Yahshua. Yahweh raised a Jesus in Judges chapter 3, verse 2. His name was Othniel, of the line of God, of the tribe of Judah. And notice in verse 10, he judged. This was the first judge. And the word judge is the word ruler. It's the word governor. Now, where might you think Othniel, the line of God, of the tribe of Judah, was judging from? What city do you think he was judging in at Judges chapter 3? Jerusalem. Well, the city of the book, which speaks of Jerusalem. He's judging in the city of the book. And so here we have the figure of the Lion of Judah in the city of the book. King, as it were, judge, ruling. And he's going to conquer Cushan, Rishathaim. Now you try saying that with a donut. In verse 10. Cushan, Rishathaim. That was the enemy at the time. And where's he from? The king, the enemy. Mesopotamia. And what city is in Mesopotamia? Babylon. Here is the Lion of Judah ruling in the city of the book, claiming a betrothed daughter as he conquers Babylon. It makes sense, it's Babylon, because Cushan Risha, well, the word Cush, you'll know that one. In Genesis chapter 10, Cush begat who? Nimrod, who built Babylon. Othniel, in type, brought down the kingdom of man in the city of the book as he was judging there, vanquishing the kingdom of men. But here in Judges chapter 1, he's the Redeemer. He's going to redeem the bondwoman. He's going to redeem Achsah, who just so happens to be from the same tribe. She's not just from the same tribe, she's also from the same clan. She's not just from the same clan, she's from the same family. And she's not just from the same family, she's from the same generation. These two lovebirds knew each other. They grew up together. And when the opportunity came, Othniel seized the moment. Doesn't Peter implore us to grow in the knowledge and in the grace and the understanding of the Lord Jesus Christ? From a youth up, we get to know him. You know, the whole of the scriptures, brothers and sisters, believe it or not, is a love story. It's a love story between a husband and his bride. He's betrothing himself to us. You know, when you come to Revelation and you see the letters to the ecclesias, what ecclesia suffered the most? Ephesus. And what was Ephesus' problem? She lost her first love. We've got to fall in love with our Mashiach, brothers and sisters. As Achsah fell in love with her lion, the servant and the daughter. And they came from the same generation. And what generation did these two romantic youngsters grow up in? Well, if you look and scan your eyes down Judges chapter 1, it's an entire generation marked by unbelief. And if you turn over to Judges chapter 2 and verse 10, a specific word is used. There arose another generation which knew not God. They lived in an unfaithful generation, did Caleb and Achsah and Othniel. Another generation that knew not God. And what was Jesus going to say to his generation? What did the Lion of God from the tribe of Judah say about his contemporaries? Well, he tells us in Matthew 17 and verse 17, "O faithless and perverse generation," he declares. And so these two fathers, old in age, yet youthful in energy, propose their daughters so that someone of faith can hold their hand. Just one man to hold the daughter's hand. And what was the father asking of that hand? What did Caleb want that man to do? And what did the father want that man to do? Well, Ephesians 5 tells us to lay down his life for his bride in the city of the book. And I've got two daughters. And what father wouldn't want that? And out of all of the myriads of people, there was just one. The lion. It says in verse 13 that Othniel took Kirjath Sepher, the city of the book, and he claimed Achsah as his bride. And Hebrews 2 and Romans 6 and Colossians 2 comes alive with electricity, because it tells us there that in Jerusalem, Jesus conquered what? He conquered the power of death, it says, and by doing so, he set the daughter free. But brothers and sisters, the story is not yet finished. There's just one more little teaser to come, isn't there? Because at the moment, they're not yet married. They're not married, brothers and sisters, because if you look at verse 14 of Judges chapter 1, there is Othniel, in the city of the book, and she's brought to him in verse 14, and he's waiting there patiently in the city for them to be wed, and the moment she arrives, he notices she's not comfortable. There's something not quite right, because it says that she moved him. The NSAB says she persuaded him. The ESV says she urged him. She begged him. Something was of vital importance to this woman, and it says that she urged him to ask her father for a field. She wants a field. She's got a husband. What does she want a field for? In verse 14, Young's tells us that it wasn't just a field. There should be a definite article. She wants the field. The field. Well, what field was it? What field does she want? Verse 15, it's appropriate, isn't it, for this Bible school? She wants springs in verse 15. And Othniel, he's absolutely stunned, isn't he? He's got an absolute beaut. The crown jewel of all of Israel. She's come to urge him for a field. And Caleb is absolutely astonished. He's so astonished, we don't even see his answer, because the next thing we see in verse 14, she's with her father. And she rides to him, right? She gets off the donkey. The idea is that she fastened herself off the donkey. She plunged off the donkey. Her feet hit the floor. And Caleb is so shocked as the father. He goes, "What aileth thee, my daughter? What's up? What's the matter with you?" And then she says, "Well, the wedding's postponed. The wedding is postponed until this issue is resolved. Give me a blessing," in verse 15. Give me a gift. Give me a present. Now, what she's requesting a double portion on top of her dowry. Would you agree? Her dowry was the city of the book. And she's requesting now a double portion. And she gives her reason, because in verse 15 she says, "For thou hast given me the southland." Now you might have a different translation, because what she's effectively saying is that you've given me the parched land, the dry land. You've given me California. You've given me the dry land. I want the springs. That's what she's saying. Now what she's referring to is clearly the city she's inherited. She wants the city of the book. She's got the city of the book, but her problem is it's barren, it's dry, it's a wilderness, it's parched. Would you agree, brothers and sisters, that Jerusalem today is parched spiritually? Would you agree that the city of the book today is an absolute wilderness, barren? For this marriage to thrive, in verse 15, she desired fresh springs. She wants Jerusalem alive. And she can't live there at the moment. She can't live in the city of the book right now. So Caleb, in verse 15, grants her water above and water below. She wants this subterranean spring of water. And so the father says, "Well, I'll give you the waters at the top and the waters at the bottom, and that will sort the barrenness out, won't it?" And so then Achsah, she comes back to her husband, and he's delighted because she comes back to him with a living spring. Why would she want a living spring? So he can wash her with the water of the word, says Ephesians chapter 5. As the husband's role is to wash his bride with the water of the word. And you know what? Archaeologists today, this is fascinating. Archaeologists today have gone to Debir, and they've gone to Kirjath, Sepher, and guess what they found? 2 wells. Still today known as the upper and the lower well that connect to an underground spring. And that was the field she wanted. She wanted the field to recuperate the city of the book. Waters above and waters below. Now we know that city was to become Debir. Would you agree with that? Nod your head. It was to become, thank you for doing that. It was to become the sanctuary. It was to become the priestly city. The family of the high priest was to live and occupy the city of Debir. Now, what this woman was doing, the bride, she ensured that there was a supply of water so the priestly city could nourish spiritual teachings. In fact, we're told in Joshua 21 that the city eventually had pastures where livestock and cattle and sheep could dwell. It became well known for its pastures. There's one more little piece of the puzzle in this obscure part of the story. Because my question is, could the high priest and could the priests have an inheritance? It's an open question. No. Numbers 18, verse 20 tells us that the priests had no territory. They weren't allotted with any inheritance at all, because their inheritance was Yahweh. So the question is, whose inheritance was the city of the book if it wasn't the priests? It's still going to be Judah's. It's going to be Achsah's. It's going to be Othniel's inheritance. But the problem is, by the time it became the city of the sanctuary, years later, Achsah was fast asleep in a deathly slumber. She never got to see what that city became. And yet she prepared for the city to become what it did. In other words, this marvelous sister was preparing for the future. Her whole life was to prepare the city of the book for the future. It tells us in Colossians 1 that she focused on being a partaker of the inheritance of the saints. She looked towards the city as the sanctuary. She never saw it as the city of the book, did she? She saw it what it would become in the future. Now, if we were to look at Jerusalem, well, Jerusalem today is a city of the book. It's a city of the parched land. What is it going to become, brothers and sisters? Because I think Achsah's signature is written in Revelation chapter 22. And Revelation 22 is all about Jerusalem in the future. What do we see in Revelation 22? Shall I read the words to you to put you out your misery? Listen to these words. A river of life flows down the middle of a great street within the city. And we know what that city is called. Revelation 21 verse 10 tells us that the city of the future is called the sanctuary, holy Jerusalem. This wonderful sister didn't look at Jerusalem, brothers and sisters. She looked at the sanctuary. And how many of us in this room look at Jerusalem today and project our minds to the inheritance yet to come? Look at it. Look at that city. It's not going to be like that. It's not going to be the dry desert, the city of the book. It's going to become the sanctuary where a river shall flow into the nations to feed upon the fruit of the trees, as it says in holy Jerusalem. So that's her inheritance. And it's rather ironic, it's our inheritance too, as the bride, betrothed to her husband. But my final question, where did Achsah live all of those years if she didn't live in the city of the book? Where do you think she lived? Well, I believe she lived in that plentiful field. The field that was given to her as a double portion from Caleb. Shall we finish, brothers and sisters, on what that field was? Would you like to know what that field gave? Well, we're going to have to turn to Song of Solomon and chapter 4 as our final reference. This was the field, I believe, that she contributed to her marriage in preparation for the inheritance to come. Song 4 is a song between two people. It's a song between the bridegroom and his bride, and in the opening remarks from verse 12, it's the bridegroom affectionately thanking his wife. Now, as we read these words, think about Achsah and Othniel in that field together, all of those years as they wait for the inheritance to come. Verse 12, a garden enclosed is my sister, my spouse, a spring shut up, a fountain sealed. Thy plants are an orchard of pomegranates and pleasant fruits, a fountain of gardens, verse 15, a well of living waters and streams from Lebanon. And now verse 16, the bride responds. This is the words of Achsah. This is the words of you and I to our lion. Awake, O north wind, and come south. Blow upon my garden. Let my beloved come into his garden and eat his pleasant fruits. Do you see what's happening? The field she bought was for him. She cultivated it, she watered it, she nourished it, she nurtured it, and she gave it to her Redeemer. And for all those years, the husband and the wife lived in this plentiful field as she gave him fruit. What fruit do you think she gave? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Where am I reading from? The fruit of the Spirit. And how fruitful was that marriage as they waited for their inheritance yet to come. It was all to prepare them, wasn't it? That little field, that little ecclesial life they had together, that little Bible school they had for those decades, was all to prepare them for the great river that flooded into the city of the book. The Mohar, the Dowry, the inheritance yet to come, the sanctuary, the oracle, holy Jerusalem.
Don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Drop a comment in the comment section and let us know what you thought. And make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Please share it and spread the word. Thanks for watching, and remember to come back soon.